Mm. Okay, so first of all, I want to say Tashidele to all our Dharma brothers and sisters, and of course to Lamalas. I see all of you. Very nice to see you after a long time. I was looking forward to visiting all of you this summer, but as we know, everybody is in lockdown, and for some of you, maybe slowly coming out of it. But for us here, it's getting more and more. So it's pretty certain that I cannot travel for another few months. So seeing to all that, then I had to make the decision to cancel this year, the Dharma trip. So, but even though I couldn't make it there, we learned about this new way this time. So that is something, from this unfortunate incidents, but we learned something new, which I'm sure you all knew, but I didn't know about this, that we could use Zoom, and it's so practical and very easy. So this is something we discovered this time. I discovered this time. So in that way, then the world seems so small, and we are all connected. So in that sense, then it's not too bad, So today, I think, so I was trying to do this Zoom with a few Dharma centers around, and I think today all the centers, especially the Palpung, Birmingham, Palpung, Finland, Palpung, France, Palpung, Ireland, Palpung, Spain, Palpung, Wales, and also, the other individual Dharma brothers and sisters are taking part in this. So it's very nice to be connected with all of you. I know we had some delay in start, but hopefully it should be okay. Even here today, I don't have lights, because it's a little windy here. So because of that, my Wi-Fi is not working. I'm on a mobile data connection. So let's hope it works throughout well. So right now seems to be okay. So we do the best we can, right? So yeah. So when I decided to cancel this year's trip, then I had sent a message to all of you. Something that's I felt was very essential, simple yet essential. That I would like to share with all of you, because we are all in this a difficult situation together. Normally we individually face certain situations, so-called difficult, or happy situations, or difficult situations we normally face individually. But this time it is all a collective, time that we are facing this together. So in that sense, then it kind of brings all of us together, and everyone going through the same experience. So keeping that in mind, then I thought of sharing some thoughts with all of you. So today, the talk that I'm planning to talk on is the same, based on that message that I had sent you. So from there, then we try to relate the message to the Dharma and the practice and our day-to-day life. And with that, then if we get time, then we do some practice and then question answer. So that's roughly how I would like to go. And today, since no translation, I think we can save a little time there, which we kind of gifted a little bit in the beginning, right? So anyway, so let's see. So now from the message that I had sent you, so I said, usually we receive many Dharma teachings but somehow we never have the time to reflect on them. This is a great opportunity. So this time is a great opportunity to reflect on them and put to practice. So now we all have received so many Dharma teachings in the past and still receiving. And we can see, even during such lockdown times, we are so fortunate to receive so many Dharma teachings. And that is why, I was getting a lot of requests by people saying to go online teaching and all that. But I see around me so many great masters giving teachings online every day that I was saying it's not necessary for someone like me to be there trying to give too much of teaching when we already have so many great masters giving teachings online. If we can just practice them, I think it's more than enough. So that is how we receive so many Dharma teachings nowadays. Even when the situation is difficult, still, we are not robbed from the chances of receiving such precious teachings. So that way, we have so many teachings till now. But somehow we all know that though we have received so many teachings, how much of them have we actually been able to apply in our day-to-day life? Now I cannot say, that everybody hasn't done. I know many of them have really practiced in their life, but a lot of them also, in spite of having this fortune of receiving so many precious teachings, we somehow lose this, of practicing them. Once we go out of the Dharma centers or go out of the teaching hall, back to our day-to-day life, then we kind of forget them and or unable to relate them to our day-to-day life. So that way we lose again back into the worldly happenings and experience the same things. And then sometimes we even doubt that receiving so many teachings, spending so much time, going to so far places, so all these, is it really worth or not? So we start to reflect this way, but forgetting that whether we are really being able to put those teachings into practice. So that way, for example, uh, I'll give you a stupid example that came into my mind. I like music, so one big regret I have is in my school days, I never learned instrument, music instrument. I had the opportunity, but I went and played sports, and I never played music. And now I cannot go around running around playing soccer, football, but I could have stayed enjoying the music, playing a music instrument, so that is something I enjoy, but so like that, so because of that, so one example come in my mind, like recording, you have a very beautiful music, you record the music, but then you keep recording and recording and recording, getting so much into recording, but if you never play the music, if you never let people enjoy the music, if you never experience the music yourself, but get lost in recording after recording after recording, then one day, the time for you will be there where you have to leave this, and then you won't have the time to really enjoy what is being recorded. So then what is the use? You are not able to really, soak in the beauty of the music. It was all wasted in just recording and recording and recording. So same way, even Dharma we receive, but after receiving, we have to be able to absorb that, not just receive and receive and receive. So that way, so in that sense, I think this time we are somewhat, forced to stay back, and have time to ourselves. In a way, we have so much time to ourselves that a lot of people is having a lot of problem with this, don't know how to use the time, don't know what to do, because of such time. Lots of people are asking me, how are you coping with this, isolation, and how are you managing? For me, I don't find any difference, because for us, I am always alone in the room. I never go out. I'm all alone in isolation. This is the best. You have your time. You have time to reflect on yourself. You have time to do anything. So it is, in a way, if you see in that sense, then it is really not too bad. So it is way how you project it. So in that sense, then I think that is what I mean, by opportunity. So if you are able to use the situation in a more prospective, or how do you say, more, advantage to your own, so that kind of a way, then it can really be. So like great masters have said, that for example, the great master Jalse Togme Zangbo, who compiled the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. So in that practice, he says that giving up inhospitable place, mental afflictions gradually decrease. With no distractions, virtuous activities naturally increase. When mind becomes clear, conviction in the Dharma is born. Therefore, seeking solitude is the practice of a bodhisattva. So that is one of the advice that he gives, or teaching that he gives, that we should adopt in our day-to-day life. So here, so when I say this, then for example, when he says the inhospitable place, so how can we relate to this? So here, then normally we are engrossed in the worldly activities of the not very far reaching benefits, the external pleasures, as we say. So of course, all of us, we are always trying to achieve some kind of comfort, happiness, and trying to overcome difficulties, sufferings. So that is what we are doing. But somehow we tend to seek that solution externally through relative purposes or means. So, for example, normally you are in a, let's say you work very hard throughout the week, and then you are tired, then you need to relax. You want to have some recovery from this, and then weekends we move towards the beach or the mountain, right? In Europe, especially when I go there, Fridays, Saturdays, you don't move around too much, because all the roads are blocked, right? Because of so many people moving towards the ocean or the mountains. So everybody looking for some kind of relaxation, some kind of a solution in terms of the beach or the mountain. So that kind of. Then there are other solutions. Some people, those are good. Good kind of solution. Going to the nature is very good. But some kind of use very harmful solutions also, like drinking, etc. Drinking alcohol, using of drugs like this, so very harmful. But all this, why do they do? They're doing for some kind of achieving a pleasure, some kind of comfort, for that purpose, nothing more. I was so amazed, I should tell you, that India was in a total lockdown, and then all shops, everything closed, and then the government said you can open, before allowing any shops to open, they allowed the the liquor shops, the booze shops to open. That is so surprising for me. I cannot imagine what is so important about this, that no other shops can open, but liquor shops can open. I don't understand at all, first of all. So I think, why? Then I switch on the the television in the morning and see the news. the biggest line to the shop is the liquor shops. People, the line is so long, that it became so out of hand that government had to close all the liquor shops because too many people, too many, so like that, so people not scared to go out, not scared to get, this virus for the sake of getting the booze. So it's unimaginable, so how people become, if you're not clear in your mind. And this is something that harms you, right? So that way, but everybody do this, whether it's, liquor, whether it's any kind of means. So when we search for external pleasure all the time, so if all these were really, really, sustainable solutions, then today, we wouldn't have had any difficult time. If only external means that we were so dependent on, and we were so much, how do you say, good at using those external means for our pleasure and comfort, achieving them. And then when this situation is arising, all of us shouldn't have had so much difficult time to tackle these because we are so used to all those, how do you say, methods, skills, but somehow those left us, no matter how much skill we have to utilize the external, the pleasures, they weren't able to sustain us today. They are not there anymore. Today we cannot do what we wanted to do, what we have been relying on so much. We cannot go to the mountains. We cannot go to the, the beaches. We cannot, get the alcohols. We cannot, so all those that we were so much dependent on, they have all turned their back on us, and then what we have done with them till now hasn't sustained us with anything right now. So more than that, if we had relied on the internal growth, the internal development, then in such times like this, that would have been more beneficial for us. As you can see, people who are more inwardly, concerned in developing, then such people in these times, they are able to turn their mind from this, what is happening, and able to make this into a better use for themselves, more productive, so that way we can see, the difference of this. So here, that is what, one can understand when we say inhospitable place. So we always rely on the external place, the external pleasures, that kind of a place, actually, which is inhospitable. It doesn't really sustain us, but we are so habituated to that. The more habituated we become to that, the more it creates problem for us. So here, that way. And then virtuous actions. So here, when he says, so with that kind of thing, then the virtuous activities, kind of gets decreased or stained. So here, then self-reflection, mindfulness, knowing the need of the hour, so that is the virtuous action. So when you are able to do that, and then it is sustainable, the effects are sustainable. One can be at peace within, no matter what the situation is. Then conviction in the Dharma, so conviction in the Dharma means confidence in the right action to adopt to genuinely benefit oneself and others. Taking up the righteous path and abandoning the meaningless actions. So that is Dharma. Dharma is not very complicated. Dharma means that, very simple. Able to see with clarity and, to do the right things to achieve happiness, and able to eradicate the actions and the source to suffering. So that is Dharma. Dharma is nothing but that. So if one is able to do that, then that is one is a genuine Dharma practitioner, and this is what everybody wants. So Dharma is chu. In Tibetan, chu. So change. We change from relying only on external material, material, and changing from that and looking inwardly to a more sustainable, beneficial solution, and able to change from creating the source and conditions of suffering into the source and condition of happiness. So that is Dharma. So that is Dharma. So then, so that kind of thing, when one is able to, the conviction in that develops, when one's virtuous action increases, and that happens when one is able to stay away from the inhospitable places. And then the seeking solitude. So therefore, all this possible in seeking the solitude. When one, seeks solitude here, it says. So all this is possible when we make time to be with ourselves in the moment and not distracted by the colors of the external superficial comforts of the world. So when we are able to stay back, when we are able to look clearly, understand the situation, we can only recognize the situation as it is when we are able to sit back and relax. When our emotions, don't kind of carry us in its ups and downs, then we can see the situation more clearer. Otherwise, we are normally carried away by the emotions, and then we make wrong judgment. So therefore, solitude is very important in that sense. So solitude doesn't always mean just being in a place where there's nobody, or locked up in one place. It doesn't only mean that. There's so many levels of solitude, but then for somebody, when you are locked in, when you are alone, then that is a kind of a plus. Oops, my lights have gone. 1 minute. Okay, so that way, then so it gives us an extra extra base to achieving the solitude, because you are alone. There's nobody to disturb you. So then you have enough time to yourself. So you have enough time to reflect. Normally we have work to do. Somebody comes to visit us. We have to go visit somebody. Then there's so many things happening around. There's no much time to really have self-reflection. But this time you have more time, all the time in the world to do that. So that way, and then it is kind of actually, a bonus situation for us. So here, so that is what I mean by able to use this situation in our own advantage. And then applying the Dharma in our lives. So when I say applying the Dharma in our lives, then one can put forth questions like, can it really help? How it helps, and how to apply. So that kind of one could wonder, or one could have these kind of questions. So yes, it can help. Such reflections can help. Why? Because we all have this beautiful innate quality, which is the limitless potential, limitless compassion, loving kindness. We say the Buddha nature, which is perfect and free from all limitations. So this is our very nature. This is something that we all have within us. But just knowing this is not enough. We have to discover that and manifest this quality. That is important. If you just know it, is not enough. For example, we might say, that the Buddhists talk about all this, so how do we know, that all beings, the nature is innate nature is loving kindness, and all these, how can we, some people say it's not, it's the innate nature of human is, opposite to that, because we create so much problem, we create so many, confusion around, so there are arguments like that, but then, those who somewhat we tend to believe in the scientific world more nowadays, so even scientifically it's been proved now, that the human innate quality is compassionate, loving kindness rather than, aggression, rather than selfishness, so that is not our innate quality. They did experiments on small children, very small children who haven't been yet, how do you say, changed with the ideas of how the normal world functions. And such small children, they take, and in front of them, then they project different situations on a, I guess, projector with, like cartoons and like this. And then where they show one act is, there's an act of loving kindness, two persons, or, and then each other, helping each other, benefiting each other, and then being kind to each other, showing compassion to each other. And when this child sees this, child is very happy, automatically very happy, very at peace, and enjoys that. Then on the other side, they take a child with and shows, the opposite, where two, person then very mean to each other, not very friendly environment. And when the child sees this, the child is very unhappy, very sad, and repulsed to such things. So this, scientists through these many experiments have come to a conclusion, somewhat conclusion, that the innate quality of beings is loving kindness, compassion, and not hatred, not selfishness, not that, So that way, even scientifically now being proven, and of course in the in our precious Buddha Dharma, then it has been taught that way, and we understand this way. So very much, going in hand, so that way, modern research also is pointing towards that, and the ancient wisdom also says that, so it's, so that way we can base the truth, so now, so this is possible because we have this quality, innate quality in us. Therefore, achieving peace, achieving happiness, everlasting, sustainable happiness is possible because of this quality, which is unstained from all limitations. So because of those qualities, then we can remove our stains of the mental afflictions, which create so much suffering for us. And so all that is possible. We have hope to all that because of this very innate nature that we are. So that way, then of course, applying the Dharma in our life, then lives, it can help us, it can change us, we can change for the better. So definitely, so, and for example, again, if I give you, now knowing all this is not enough. We have to be able to develop that. We have to recognize this, not only recognize, then work on that and develop that, manifest that. For example, like our eyes have the quality to see. The quality of the eye, or the character of the eye, is to see. But just having that character again is not enough. If we cover our eyes with our hand, we cannot see. Though the eye has the quality to see, if it is covered with the hand, it cannot see. And just knowing that you cannot see with your eyes being closed with a hand doesn't help. If your eyes are closed with your hand, though how much you know that the hand, because the hand blocks your eye, you cannot see, is not going to help. The action of removing the hand from the eyes, then you can see, because that is the quality of the eye. The character of the eye is to see. And so in the same way, this innate quality that we have, through practice, then we are able to see, the able to manifest this innate quality of loving, kindness, compassionate, limitless potential. So that is how it helps by applying the Dharma, how it really helps. So now, so in this way, then applying the methods of discovering the manifestation of the Buddha nature practically is the most important. This way, then we can truly overcome all our shortcomings and sufferings. So now, and then also I mentioned, that so in doing this, the great masters have showered us with great sacred instructions, of which one I have mentioned in the message, where it says we should see unfavorable circumstances as a spiritual teacher. So this is very important. As a practitioner, we are taught to view things in this perspective, and it is very helpful. Again, same, the great master Thongme, he says, that though gripped by poverty and always scorned, though stricken by acute illnesses and possessed by evil spirits, to take upon oneself the negativities and sufferings of every beings, and never to give up or get discouraged is the practice of a bodhisattva. So that is that is how he teaches how to practice like this. So here then unfavorable circumstance. When we say unfavorable circumstance, then it means, what is unfavorable circumstance? It is during such time and that we truly recognize the imperfect, ever-changing nature of samsara. It has the power to truly develop in us the great strength to overcome this imperfection. So it is only, of course, in good times, if we are mindful, we can see, the nature of the samsara, which is ever changing all the time, impermanent, everything changing, but and nothing is sustainable. But it is very hard for us to really recognize that. And we get carried away, in our day-to-day life, in the happy moments, that we are unprepared for any change. Though change is happening all the time, we don't recognize this, and we are stuck in this false notion of everything being permanent, everything being there, as it is. So then we get stuck to that, and when changes do come, we are unprepared for it. But when difficult times manifest in front of us, then we don't like those kind of situations. Then it makes us think, what is the situation, how it came about, how to get out of it. So then it makes us move towards or take the first step towards coming out of this situation. But the situation is the same. As long as in the samsara, the very nature of samsara is change, ever changing. This change brings suffering, all the time. So good moments not always remain the same, always changing, changing to different moments, and that brings suffering. Then, sufferings also, changing all the time. That can change all the time. So when we don't recognize this, then again we, hold on to this suffering too much and create, more suffering on top of that, and even more depression. Like in this particular time, there are many people, who are really going through difficult times. Situation not so, of course, serious. We have to do our best to take care, of the situation, but nothing more than that. We are not sick yet. Many people are not sick yet. They are comfortable in their own place. They can protect themselves, everything there. But mentally, they get so worked up that though they are not sick, they are sick mentally, and they're suffering so much. So like that, so those kind of situations arise. So that way, when we don't understand this, the change, ever-changing nature, impermanent, so then these things arise. We are gripped by such sufferings. So therefore, we start to look around. When these situations happen, then we look around for the solutions. We take the first step towards freedom then. When we take that first step, that is the first step towards freedom, of happiness. So that is why then such situations, in a way, it's very helpful. It is like an eye opener for us. So therefore, it says such situation is very profitable to us. So usually, we are so engrossed in the worldly pleasures, which are all ever changing and has the root to suffering. Now there are many beautiful examples, I think, again given. Like in one text, there's an example where like how do you say, the hay, a very cushion of hay, and then underneath, there's a burning. It's burning underneath. So when it's burning underneath, on top, as long as it doesn't reach the top part, it's very warm. It's very warm and comfortable. So if you are sleeping on that, sack of hay, which is burning underneath, it's very warm. It's very comfortable. So if you enjoy that comfort too much, then when that hay starts to burn, and when that reaches the surface, then you know what happens, right? So that is you get burnt with it. So like that. So normally we are so engrossed in these superficial pleasures, and that the very nature of these superficial pleasures are suffering. They change to suffering. They are the source to these sufferings. So it's like the the burning, the fire. So the fire gets more and more closer. Yet we kind of get attached to these kind of pleasures. Then other beautiful example again given is like licking the honey on a a razor blade, sharp edge of blade. So underneath there's a blade, but on top honey. So if you don't know, then you lick the honey. The more you lick, the more closer you get to the blade. And then if not careful, then if you keep licking, then your tongue gets totally cut by the blade. That is great suffering. So like that. So if you are not mindful, if you get too much carried away by these superficial external pleasures, then that can happen to us. But if we recognize this very nature of the samsara, ever changing, this superficial nature of the samsara, then we will not be sitting on the hay itself. We will not be, the thought of pleasure of this warm, bed of dry grass will not come in our mind. The very thought of licking the honey on the blade will not come in our mind. Because we know the very nature underneath what it is. So therefore, if we recognize this, the very nature of this samsara, then the pleasure, the attraction to these superficial pleasure is uprooted from us. So then we become free from having to renounce such pleasure, because you don't see any pleasure in them, because you see the reality of it. So that is what here it means. How these unfavorable circumstances can lead us to opening our eyes to these, if we are able to really utilize them and see them in a positive perspective. So in this way, then we are able to genuinely achieve our wish of freedom from suffering. So therefore, the unfavorable circumstances are our true spiritual teacher. So that is why we consider them as a true spiritual teacher. Then also again in many other instructions, masters have told us that people who bring out faults in us, they are the true spiritual teacher or the genuine friend to us. Again, this is the same idea. Normally somebody is our friend when they praise us, when they are nice to us, when they are, the more clever they are in hiding our faults and shortcomings, the more good friend they are, so called, because they are always hiding our faults. But that way, there's no room for us to improve. We are who we are. Unless we are able to eliminate the limitations, then where's the room to improve? We are stuck where we are. But then those people who bring out the faults in us, maybe knowingly, maybe not knowingly, they bring us, the faults in us. Then through that, if you are able to see that as a genuine friend, what they are doing, then it shows us what are our faults. And when we are able to see our limitations that way and work on them, then we develop as a person. We develop that way. So they are doing the work for us, which we are unable to do ourselves. So that way they are genuine friends. So next time somebody kind of brings out faults in us, we shouldn't get upset with them. In fact, we should appreciate them. In this way, they are giving us an opportunity to grow. To become a better than what you are. So that way, then we should appreciate this. You can, if you have enough ability, then you genuinely appreciate them in terms of praises and being nice to them. Even if you're not able to do that, from within you appreciate, and don't don't retaliate in any negative way to such people, because knowing that they are benefiting you rather than harming you. So this way, if you adopt this understanding, then no matter what the situation is, no matter what kind of people you come up with, everything becomes your friend. Everything becomes advantage to you. Nothing can put you down. You cannot become victim to anything anymore. So that is how a genuine spiritual student or a genuine practitioner is. All situation is situation for one's development. No situation is negative situation. So such times are all times of genuine development. So therefore, then it gives us great strength internally. So it's very important to view in this perspective, so that it gives us strength to develop. It gives us positive, and through this kind of a positive living, through this kind of positive view, then it affects the people around us also. And it helps the people around us to grow also. Like again, they say, if there is a sandalwood, tree in middle of ordinary, grove of trees, that sandalwood tree will, gradually make all the ordinary trees also smell like sandalwood tree. So that way, so one would be able to be the source of happiness, source of, greatness for everybody around oneself. So that way, so our perspective, our view, our outlook has to be positive this way. Then it can help us, it can help others. So that is very important to the view unfavorable circumstances as favorable circumstance, rather than getting bogged down by it. So that is why I mentioned that. And then next is not being overwhelmed by the present situation, but transforming it to our own advantage to develop our inherent qualities. So here again, I want to share with you some great the sayings of the masters. So like here, not being overwhelmed by the present situation. So usually we are overwhelmed by a situation when we are unprepared for the situation. When we are unprepared for something, when it happens, then we are overwhelmed. But when we are prepared for a situation, when that happens, you are not overwhelmed. So unprepared means not knowing the situation. So when you don't know the situation, then you are unprepared. So we gradually perceive this relative world and its experiences as ultimately or ultimate, and are so engrossed in its comfort, in its comfort and its color of play, the samsara. Normally, gradually, we are like this. We are so engrossed in this. We are so habituated to this. We form such strong bond and habits to its ever-changing experiences of the external worldly pleasures. We get so habituated to feeding the self and perceiving the self to be a permanent individual entity. And we get so habituated in trying to satisfy the needs of the self with the external pleasures. So we are always doing this. We are, always thinking, of I, always trying to please this I, always trying to do everything for this I. Then when I comes, then mine, so that way, differentiation between me and you, mine and yours. So all this, all the problems in this world, you see, comes about with this, with this strong attachment and grasping onto this self and the self identity. So so that way. Then, but this is not the way to truly overcome these needs, our needs for happiness, because this itself, as a single limited entity, is a completely misjudged, or it's a misjudgment to the limitless, perfect, ever-present, compassionate, non-dual, selfless, all-encompassing nature of ours, which we also call the Buddha nature. So it is totally misconception or misinterpretation of this beautiful nature, our innate nature. And so when we don't recognize this, with ignorance, we see this limitless into such a limited thing as I. Then when you see this as limited as I, then it's so limited, me and mine, it cannot be anything more than that. So it becomes so limited, very limited. Like again, they're saying, that as long as there's I, there's only one I here. If you say I, how many I is there? Only one I is here. How many you is there? The entire, beings, other beings are all you. So even ratio-wise, there's no comparison. So as long as you take I, then you are very limited. Very, very limited. So that way, so when we have that kind of a strong attachment to this self, I, then all these problems arise, because this potential, this nature, the natural innate nature is unable to manifest its beauty, its power, because of this limitation, the ignorance of this I. It is covering it, like the sun. The sun has the ability or power of, warmth, of light, to lighten up the entire, earth or the surroundings. But when it is covered with the cloud, then the light or the warmth cannot, touch us. But then that doesn't mean the sun doesn't have any warmth or light. It is these temporary cloud that obstructs the light and the warmth. So in the same way, are these afflictions create are like the cloud, which create this obstruction for this beautiful nature to manifest or develop. Rather manifest, let's say. It is already there in full. Only thing is, we haven't recognized. So there's nothing to really develop as such. So it is already there. But here, when I said develop, it means the development of the working to eradicating these the stains of ignorance. So that is practice of the Dharma. By doing the practice of Dharma, we are eradicating the stains, and by eradicating the stain, that very innate nature in us manifests, and that is the that is the fruition. So so which is already in us, which is already there. So because it is already there, we can achieve that. Like, for example, if we have a clear, white canvas, then we can paint on the clear white canvas whatever we want to paint. So we have that because the very base of the canvas is white, clear, pure. But on the other hand, if we have already a dirty canvas, and then we cannot do anything. We cannot paint beautiful on that because it is already stained. How can you make it into a beautiful painting? You cannot. So in the same way, if our very innate nature was stained from beginning, then there is no possibility of achieving enlightenment, freedom. But because our very innate nature is free from such stains, it is perfect, it is limitless, it is compassionate. So because of these characters, then it is possible to achieve that. It is possible to manifest that. So that is our biggest hope. Because that is our nature, we have the hope to attain enlightenment. So here, so that is what I meant. So here now the and then here in that context, then the great in the text known as the mind training. In the mind training, then there is a verse which one can train on. It says that all the harms present in the world, all the fear and sufferings present in this world, all these come about with the self-attachment. So with these understandings, what is the need for such a big harmful enemy to entertain such harmful enemy, which is always harming ourselves. So like, again, so I'm sure you can understand this now. So if I give you another example again, like say, you are doing, like a shooter, shooting. And so when somebody shoots at a target, so if the target is very big, then it's very easy to hit the target, right? And pierce the target. So your I is like the target, the self, I is like the target. Normally we have very big ego, very big I. So more the bigger ego, more the bigger I is, attachment to this I, then the easier we get hit all the time by these, arrows, by these bullets, and harms us all the time, hurts us all the time. People with big ego, people with big self, a centered character, then always, upset with little things. Easy to get upset, easy to get disturbed. Then the smaller your attachment to this self, this I, then the smaller the target is, and it's very difficult for the shooter to shoot this that kind of a target. The shooter has to be very skillful in shooting the target. So same way, if your I is smaller, then it's very difficult for you to get hurt also. Because it's difficult to pierce this small target of I. So that way, and the smaller the better. And if no more I, then there's nothing to shoot at. Nobody can harm you anymore. Because there's no target. So no matter where the shooter shoots, he will not get the target. Because there's no more target left to shoot. So same way, if there's no more I left there, then there's nothing to shoot. So you are free from any harm. You're free from such suffering. So therefore, this kind of training very important. Always reflecting, that this I is the main source of all suffering. If we are able to see that and become more turned towards others, helping others, benefiting others, putting others before oneself. If one is able to do that, then gradually while doing that, it benefits us automatically, like the target. The smaller this target of I becomes, the less chances of you getting hit, and getting and suffering. So that way, so such training, this is the training, of the mind, mind training. So a very important training. So, so now, so through such analysis, and then we recognize the source of all our suffering, and then try to apply remedies to our to overcome such sufferings. So in doing that, again in the mind training, that there's a very sacred instruction given by the great enlightened Bodhisattva Shantideva. So he says, that if you not aspire for the exchange of your happiness with the sufferings of others, then enlightenment is not possible. And not only that, even relative happiness in the samsara is not possible. So this is again the same, and it's very true. If you see, for example, again, if I give you, a simple example, like happiness and suffering are all state of one's mind. So, like let's say boxing, So normally, if somebody punches, that is the worst thing, right? You don't like that. You would be suffering. Who would enjoy somebody, hitting on your head, and punching you all the time? That would lead to great suffering and great confusion. But because you don't expect that, you don't enjoy that. But then in the boxing ring, in the sports of boxing, you look for the most dangerous opponent. The more the dangerous your opponent, and you can overpower them, the greater you become. The more famous you become, the world champion you become. So in order to become a world champion, you have to fight the world champion, which means the more dangerous opponent. So getting hit by this opponent all over you at that moment is a matter of pride, not a matter of suffering. Not a matter of anger, but it's a matter of skill. It's a matter of, there's no anger in there, you are trained to tackle this, and you overcome this, idea of suffering through these blows because you are in the sports of such boxing, and your mind is adapted to this. And so that way, when your mind is adapted, then we overcome such things. So in the same way here, so it says that so that way, then if one aspires to exchange one's suffering for the other's benefit, then such suffering also, is no more suffering to us. If we are able to change our mind that way. Many people again think, with such instructions, they are like, why should I be so negative? I don't want to suffer. I don't want to take people suffering. That why should I give all my, why should I exchange my happiness to others? Why should I, so like this, they have that kind of a doubt. They have that kind of, and very, kind of negative towards these kind of practices. So, so one can understand through these, and one can develop mentally through like this, understanding that by exchanging oneself, suffering of others, taking onto oneself and giving one's happiness to others, that way we develop from within, and we achieve greater peace in that, rather than being how to say, in contact with suffering, because at the end of the day, it is the state of the mind. So normally we have suffering and we don't want to suffer, so all the time we are trying to avoid the suffering. But because as I told you, samsara, samsara, the very nature of samsara is subject to change, change, always changing, always bringing different, unexpected situations, unprepared situations. And through this, we are, through this we are suffering. So that kind of, if we are always attacked, or if we are always harmed by such, then we very susceptible to such harm. We are susceptible to such suffering. But if we are able to change that, and take onto such suffering onto oneself, and able to share our happiness to others, then that way, then these sufferings doesn't become any more such suffering to us. It doesn't have that effect to overpower us anymore. So that way, how we change our view, how we look at things, it's very beneficial for our practice. Very beneficial. When I say practice, doesn't mean just sitting in a cushion and doing something, following some faith. It doesn't mean that. Practice means able to develop from within to achieve the state of peace, achieve the state of happiness. That is practice. So practice doesn't mean any limited to any just spiritual belief. It means achieving that goal of happiness for us. So then we would be able to do that. So as the example of the eye again, as I told you, then unless the nature of the eye, which is the ability to see, is manifested, the eye is unable to experience its full potential. In the same way, unless we are able to discover and manifest our full potential, we are unable to free ourselves from this ignorance, which is the root of all suffering. So as we know our nature or potential is limitless compassion, selflessness, boundless, etc. And so in order to develop and manifest this, we have to train and tread the path as shown in the practices or shown above. So train in this, then there are very deep and profound methods, such as again in the mind training, there's a practice called give and take, Tonglen practice. Tong means to send, Len means to take in, so to sending or give and taking in, so what do you give and what do you take? So here we give all our happiness, well-being, we give all that to the others, and all conditions to such happiness we give to others, and all the sufferings, unfavorable conditions, and source of all those we take into ourselves and dissolve in ourselves. So that is one understanding. Then when we face very unfavorable situations, we recognize that these situations come about not just from nowhere. It doesn't fall from the empty sky. It is because of many conditions, cause conditions, which create these situations. So there are many conditions that we created in the past, in the present, which bear such fruits in the present. So knowing this, and one going through this experience, and all such experiences develop with these kind of conditions. So knowing this, then able to take all others' suffering also onto this very experience, unfavorable experience of oneself, and wishing that all their such conditions of suffering, source of such suffering, and the suffering may dissolve into my this very experience of this unfavorable condition. And when you are experiencing a favorable, good condition, then those also in the same way doesn't arise from nowhere. It is because of one's action of the past, present. So therefore, recognizing this, then knowing this, then able to generate the sense of giving such to all other sentient beings also, and wishing genuinely that may all be, with such the source of happiness, and may all experience such happiness. So this way, so genuinely reflecting on these, and then doing practice. So when you do practice like this, then normally how we do is like same, we do the breathing meditation we do. So the same way, you breathing. Here you use the breath as the base, and on the breath, then the such idea or such mental visualizations right on them. And when you breathe out, then you think that all the happiness, the source of those happiness, all the positive conditions, everything, then goes out of you through the breath, in the form of if one needs a visualization, then you can visualize like in the form of white smoke, pure white smoke or something like that, or light also. One can visualize light also, pure white light, then goes out of you through your nostrils and mouth, and goes out, and then it is absorbed in each and every individual beings, and that way then they are able to receive this. And in the same way, then when you breathe in, then you take in all the uh, source of suffering and the sufferings of all beings in the form of dark light or smoke, and then you take in through your breathing in, and then dissolves into you. You can that goes into you towards your heart direction, or through your mouth, and then dissolves into your heart direction and dissolves into you. And one is able to absorb all that. So that kind of visualization one does, and then through the meditation, that kind of meditation, breathing in and out, one does this kind of practice. And these practices are very profound and is very beneficial. Many people have told me, when I travel around, many people have told me that they went through such difficult times, and then they have received such teachings, or they've heard of such things, and then they applied that, and it really helped them to have kind of a peace of mind, see some benefits. And also some told me, even to those who they were doing, they saw that it was helping them, so they continue to do this and that. So it's very good. Of course, it's very effective and meaningful. Then there are people also who say, that how can this really work? It is just imagination. It's just like playing game, mental game. You're just thinking that you're giving all your happiness to others. There's no practical, kind of doing it. It's just your mind doing this. How can you give your happiness to others? And how can you take the sufferings of others just by thinking, other people's suffering come in? It's just all, just mental game. It's a play. It's there's no base to it. So many people say that also. But then there's argument to that also. That everything that we perceive is, whether it's the external universe or any objects, and internally all beings, everything is, our mental projection. Our mind projects that. It is so that way everything is from the mind. So therefore, of course, through practice of the mind, you connect that way. Of course, there's a connection to that. And so that way, of course, it can benefit. What you perceive is one's mind. So therefore, practice of the mind is connected to that. So therefore, of course, it can help. Of course, it can benefit. So that way, very much, meaningful, very much practical in that sense. So the more grasp you have over this, the more beneficial it becomes. The less you think, whether it's true or not, and let me just do it, the less effect it has. But still, it's very much effect, more than not doing it, right? So therefore, it is really a very helpful practice. So especially in like these times, it is a perfect time to do this practice. Like right now, the situation that we are going through. So we are comfortable in our homes. We have the freedom of enjoying our, the comfort of a home, and the financial, stability to be at home, and so we can enjoy that. But not everybody out there have that. Like for example, in India, so many millions of people don't have food to eat, and every day are being forced to walk back to their home from the cities because they don't have place to stay, they don't have food to eat. So even if they want to stay indoor, they have no, they have no ability, or they have no chance to do do that. So then they take chance to walk back to their home, and on their way, there's so many dangers, so much suffering is going on out there. Workers, who are, out there coming, face to face with these very dangerous situations. But then, having to do that, some wanting to do that, some having to do that. So in whatever reason, then they are out there, risking everything, for the sake of, uh, us. So all those, they have so much fear, they have so much, these things. So we, all of them can be the source of this practice. So right now is the perfect time to do such practice. So instead of getting worked up by the situations, so more the self, more selfish one is, more worked up one gets. Then why this happening? Why am I locked in? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? You only see yourself, and then when you only see yourself, then all situations also become very negative to oneself. But when we are able to see all those out there, then automatically our view changes. We start to see how fortunate we are, actually. So we are able to see all that, and then we are able to develop more positive uh, attitude. So therefore, one can do such practice. So this is a very important practice from the mind training, which is very simple to do, and one can do this, every day, in your day-to-day life. So problems are everywhere. So in size, some small, some big, but everywhere, every time. As long as samsara, problem is there. So one doesn't have to look around too much for problem. You're surrounded by problem. And then so we can do this practice all the time. We can adapt to this practice all the time. So you must do this. I request all of you to do this practice. Try to do this practice times you have the conditions to do this practice, and through this practice you can really benefit the beings out there, and then in turn you can really benefit yourself. So that way, so with such practice, then we develop this insight into our nature, and gradually in the ripening of our limitless potential, in the manifestation of the innate nature. So that way. So in this way, then we change our habit of always relying on external conditions for our happiness to inner development, which is the genuine path or method of achieving a sustainable happiness. Then now the connecting with ourselves is important. So in the message I mentioned, that it is important to connect with ourselves. So what I mean by that? So connecting with ourselves means connecting with who we really are, and not who we perceive ourselves to be. So that is very important. We are free from ignorance, free from limitations, free from attachments, free from aggression, free from ego, etc., etc. We are compassionate, we are loving, we are kind, we are selfless, etc., etc. These are our genuine innate quality, as I mentioned to you before. So we usually, normally we usually are so busy in the, the colors of attractions of the external world, which is always, feeding our afflictions and the ignorance, and that it is very difficult for us to really come close to who we really are, or see who we really are. Because of this thick layer of ignorance, we are unable to really see who we really are. We always are lost in this perceived form of, the I, and unable to see the genuine, the innate, limitless nature of who we really are. So, but in these times, like this, and then when we are isolated, so isolation, again, I explained to you that then. And I'm sure we all have some idea of isolation by now. So, in these times of isolation, then, there is less external distractions and more free time for us to reflect on ourselves. Normally, there is so many external attractions, which are ever changing, which are not really sustainable, but we are so habituated to these habits that it automatically, kind of drags us towards them for any solution. And those solutions are not the genuine solution to our problem, but because of our habit to such, then it automatically, kind of takes turn towards them. Like I said, the alcohol. Alcohol is no solution to our happiness. Alcohol gives us bad habit. It gives us bad health. It creates problem in the family. It creates problem in the society. It shortens your life. And before shortening your life, it gives you so many problems. So there is no solution in the alcohol. But yet we are so blind that we think alcohol is a solution to our happiness, and we get addicted to it. And even in times like this, where people are having difficult time just to sustain livelihood of, food, they prefer to spend on alcohol than food. I was so amazed to see even the poor people, forget the people who can afford, poor people who are dying on street because of no food. Even they are lining up on, the outside of the, the liquor shops. I just couldn't imagine that. So that is how we are lost normally, in the superficial world. And so when we are not mindful, that happens. So that is what I mean. And so now, in order to do this kind of self-reflection, then to be able to sit back, and to relax, sit back is very important. And right now in this situation, then whether we like it or not, we are we are showered with this blessing, in a way. So we have to sit back. There is no, you cannot associate it. You cannot associate yourself with all these pleasures that you are so habituated to all the time. So you are forced to sit back. So when you are forced to sit back that way, then if we are able to take the step towards the right direction, then it is really, like I said, the first step towards your freedom, freedom of suffering. So it becomes very important. So now in this, to do this, as I told you, our nature is free from mental afflictions. So we have to subdue our afflictions and the temporary, the relative, these ignorance, and recognize, then as mere, how to say, the afflictions and all these confusions, we recognize that they are not the real, nature, and they don't have the sustainable character. So through practice like meditation, then we are able to recognize this. When we do this, then we are able to transform these afflictions to wisdom. We do this gradually by methods known as shamatha meditation and vipassana meditation. So like shamatha meditation, there are so many meditations. For example, meditation on breath, meditation on sound, meditation on the sensation of feeling, etc., etc. There are so many. So through this such meditation, then we developing our awareness, and through this development of awareness, then we are training the mind to be aware and not fall under the influence of the afflictive emotions. So that way, then we are training the mind. We are, how do you say, we are, we are, we are creating the ability to have a hold over the mind. So that is the meditation. So like the meditation, exactly what it, what is the understanding is, at present, our mind is completely distracted with habitual, the activities of the past, and so trapped in the net of emotion, the net of emotions, or, the chain of emotions. It is difficult to straight away come out of this trap. So we skillfully use the method of distracting the mind with one tool, that is, for example, the breathing shamatha, then using the breath as a tool, a skillful mean to to divert the mind from the distractions to one distraction. Of course, on the mind, on the breath, there is also a distraction on something, distracted on the breath, but we maintain that distraction on the breath rather than getting distracted by everything around. So that way, then it is freed from the trap of multiple traps and is only trapped by one trap, which is easier to break. We train the mind to follow our command and gradually gain the ability to direct the mind and subdue the mind or make it workable. Then, with this mind, we examine our meditation, we examine or meditation or meditate on the very nature of everything and our mind, and gradually develop the insight of nature of all Dharma. And then realization is born, which we call the enlightenment. So that is how the meditation, why we meditate. So this way, then we connect inwardly with ourselves, and through this naturally develop our power of true, genuine compassion, and so are genuinely able to help others and ourselves. Unless we are able to do this, our transformation is very limited, if not in the opposite direction, to feeling, to feeding our ego. For example, if we are not able to turn inward, if we are not really genuinely able to connect to ourselves, to who we really are, then just external, superficial, so-called practice becomes sometimes quite, how do you say, quite dangerous. Sometimes we see, the people who don't understand Dharma acts in a more, how do you say, humanely way than those who call themselves Dharma practitioners. Some Dharma practitioners, you see, they boast how many years they have been in the Dharma practice, and they are, higher, mentally higher than other people around them. Then when there's a Dharma teaching or something going on, then if they look at who gets the front seats, so if you are an old practitioner and you don't get the front seat, you are very upset. Then you fight with everybody. You make sure people know that you have been in the Dharma for so many years, and how can you be kept behind the new practitioners? And so like this, so where did all their practice go? What happened to their practice? So like that, so though they have been trying, I'm not saying they haven't been practicing, they've been practicing for so many years, putting so much effort, spending so much money, so much time, But because they weren't able to connect genuinely to themselves, it was just a superficial Dharma practice. So then, the fruit is, not very effective. One cannot really taste the fruit that way. And so it is very important to genuinely be able to absorb the Dharma. And that only happens when one really is genuinely able to connect with oneself. One really is able to see who one really is. Then through that, then when one really able to see who one really is, then it develops the how do you say the motivation to to be who you really are. And when that happens, then you recognize that everybody is like you. All beings have such quality. Then that develops into the genuine loving kindness, compassion, and through that, then one's activity really manifests. To benefit others and oneself. And so therefore, it's very important, to be able to sit back and try to connect with yourself, and not get lost in this superficial world, of even the Dharma world. If not careful, becomes superficial that way. So we have to be very careful that way. And so here. So this way, then we can truly connect with ourselves genuinely. But before connecting and helping others, we have to be able to, what I mean is, like, before helping others, we have to be able to help ourselves. That is again very important. So when I don't how do you say, misunderstand me. Motivation is very important. Our motivation is to benefit all beings. So for benefiting all beings, then we have to be in a situation to benefit others. If we are not in a situation to help others ourselves, then how we are going to help others? If we are not in a situation to help ourselves, how can we help others? Then that just becomes empty word. It's like, again, an example, like somebody stuck in a quicksand. So if you and some people stuck in a quicksand, getting, saying that you want to free all those others, out of the quicksand, just by saying that is just empty word. How can you do that? Because you yourself are stuck in the quicksand. So how do you really do that? Is first you try to get out of that quicksand yourself. And when you are able to get out of that quicksand yourself, then you can, help those who are stuck in the quicksand to come out of the quicksand. So that way, we have to work on ourselves first, genuinely. And by working on ourselves genuinely and come out of this, then we can help others. But why do we do this? Why do we help ourselves? That is the important part. We help ourselves so that we can help others. So not selfish reasons, only for self, but for the benefit of others. In order to help all those beings, then we must help ourselves first. Practice diligently, use every moment of our life, so that we can be in a position to help others. So that way, so if we think in that way, then even our action becomes, it is fueled stronger. It is, you will have the power to push yourself more, because of such genuine motivation. So that way, then so in this way, then we all are so, inherently special, and nothing and no one can ever take this away from us. As I told you, our very nature, the innate nature, the quality. So we have this in us, and it is in our hand to, really be able to recognize this and develop this or manifest this. So that is in our hand. So if we don't make an effort, then for many lifetimes, we had been like this, going round and round in the circle of samsara, and we will still go on this way. But we have the opportunity to come out of this. We have the opportunity to free all beings from this, and then we must take that, and really make it worthwhile in this life. So that way, then that is what I meant by the connecting to ourselves. So it's very important, being able to connect to ourselves. So to what time was? It's still 8 o'clock, right? Or do we still have time? Everybody's on mute. So yeah. So I guess we can take some question if there's any question.
I sent anyone or some questions. Did you, from people? Did you get them?
No, wait. I have to ask. Maybe you can ask me. Can you read it out?
Yeah. Okay, I'll just give you one that's just come in now, Rinpoche, and then I'll go find the email. So one just came in there and they said, if you can go back to the email. Yeah. How much of this virus situation do you feel is an overreaction, and how much do you feel it's serious? And the other part is also, is the lockdown mandate or law something that accords with the Dharma or not?
The second part I didn't understand clearly. I mean, I couldn't hear.
It means, is the second part means, does the lockdown law, does it that in keeping with the Dharma, with teachings of the Dharma or not?
Oh, lockdown, as I told you, okay, the second part first, because before I forget, lockdown, as I told you, is a bonus for us, because it gave us time to reflect on ourselves. In accordance with Dharma, everything is in accordance with Dharma. If one can, if one can direct the mind in the right direction, there's Dharma encompasses everything. There's nothing that doesn't, that isn't in the compass of Dharma. So everything that is, part and parcel of it. So that way, then, one, of course, this lockdown, if one uses if one is able to use it in the right way, then it becomes a very, strong tool to develop ourselves. If one is not able to do that, then of course, as we know, many people are having difficult time, trying to cope with this, so like that, so it really depends on how we direct our mind towards that. And then to the first part, of course, it is serious, it's serious in terms, it seems very contagious, so we have to take care, it is health, so relatively, we have this body, we have this life, so we have to be healthy in order to preserve this, this life. Without this life, then how can we practice the Dharma? How can we develop? We need to develop because of our, great fortune of the past, limitless lifetimes of merit. In this life, we are able to come in contact with the precious Dharma. So that way, now just coming in touch with the Dharma is not enough. As I told you in the beginning, just receiving the Dharma teaching is not enough. We have to be able to put it into practice, practical use of it in our day-to-day life. And in order to do that, we need life. If we don't have life, how do we put into practice? So we need life. So in order to have life, we need to, take care of this. So of course, it is serious. We have to do everything possible to avoid the contagious of the virus. So whatever we are supposed to do, isolation, taking care, wearing face masks, sanitizing, washing hands. So whatever we have been advised by the experts. We have to do all those, and we have to do those with, how to say, with diligence, but not to the extent of, getting worked up by that. There's two different things. Doing it in a proper way and taking care is one thing, and doing it with over exaggeration is another thing. You have to be practical. Before before you have contained the disease, contaminated by the disease, what's the use of you imagining the worst? Because the worst is not, you haven't, the worst hasn't come to you. So what is the use of imagining the worst things? It is more advisable or, wiser to take precautions to not get to the worst than thinking of the worst. So we have to be practical that way. So be practical, take care, do everything possible, but not over exaggerate, not go under the influence of one's emotions, wave of emotions, and over exaggerating things. Then that becomes difficult for oneself. You make difficult for others also around you. So that is also happening these days. So we have to be, grounded. So that is important. So so that is why, as I, earlier I told you, using such conditions to one's positive outcome. Then, if we are able to think that way, then we will be able to ground ourselves. And by being grounded, then we can work on that. And when we work on that, then we can achieve the best benefit out of it. So that way, we can work on this. Yeah. So that's the two questions, right?
Yep, that's one.
Okay.
The next one is, my intention is to use this lockdown time for practice. I was very happy, but every day I don't do so much practice. I don't know where the time goes. The end of the day, I feel disappointed and bad. There are no outer obstacles, just inner obstacles. What can I do?
Well, first thing, you said you do a little practice. That is better than not doing any practice. So you should be happy that you are doing something, rather than doing nothing. So you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. But the little thing that you do, try to do it with quality. That is important. So quantity and quality is more important. So of course, quantity with quality, of course, is very good. But if not quantity, then quality should be there. So the little you do with your best ability. So that is very good, and you appreciate that. And also, normally, as I told you, we have become so habituated to the external distractions that it is very easy to kind of get wavered by them. So that way, we have to put some effort, in disciplining ourselves. That is important. So in order to do that, first is to recognizing the condition. If you don't recognize that you are getting distracted, then there's no chance of you putting any effort of not getting distracted. So you already crossed the first step, which is recognizing, that you are getting distracted. So now, recognizing that, then trying to, put a little more effort is important. And don't get, kind of pulled down by the past, because past is gone. You cannot bring back. So whether you practiced or whether you didn't practice is not going to be of any use to you at this moment. It is already gone. So reflecting on them is of no use. Future is future, hasn't come yet. So you don't know what the future holds. So no use, getting distracted by the future. So what is there is now. Right now is there. So you can, you have the ability right now. So don't get disheartened by the past. Don't over exaggerate the future. Be mindful and be practical and be in the moment. That is important. So if you didn't practice in the past, fine. You recognize that. That's the first step. And after recognizing that, then instead of kind of regretting, and instead of kind of to all that regret, more than that, putting into practice now, trying to discipline yourself and doing something right now rather than holding on to that past. So that is important. So you can do that way. Then you will be free from all that unnecessary guilt. Because past is gone. No need to feel guilty. What's the use of being guilty of that? It's already gone. So you be in the moment, so that in the future you don't have to go through that guilt again, right? So you be in the moment and do the best you can in the moment. So as long as you do that, then you are fine. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, Rinpoche, is a Tonglen, about Tonglen practice. How can you not feel overwhelmed when practicing Tonglen when there is so much suffering in the world?
How can you not feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, how can you not feel overwhelmed when practicing Tonglen when there is so much suffering in the world?
So that is, so that's why it is important to recognize the reality of the samsara. Samsara is nothing but, change. It's the change of the suffering. So even so-called happy moments in samsara is subject to change. So that is not the reality. So we are lost in this all the time. And these sufferings is, at this moment, as I told you in the beginning, is because everybody is, facing this collectively in a, kind of a together. So we are able to experience or feel this more. Normally, individual is feeling, so we are unable to really feel it. But all the time, this is not only the suffering that one is going through. Every day, in the past, individuals have been, going through such sufferings of different kinds. So that way, and as long as we are, in the samsara, this is the very nature of samsara. So therefore, recognizing this, then we have to, come out of this samsara. And in order to do that, then, and all this, as I told you, is one's mental, state of the mind. So in order to make a difference, then one's state of mind is very important. And through like Tonglen practice, you might, so coming to the point, you might be saying this overwhelmed because, the Tonglen practice, maybe you have done or maybe you haven't done. If you haven't done, just reading and studying on it makes you overwhelmed. If you have done in the starting, it will overwhelm you. But once you continue this practice, after some time, you will overcome this. You will be able to genuinely develop, limitless compassion for other beings. So that way, then this overwhelm, there is no space of overwhelming, because when it is limitless sentient being, it is limitless. There's your compassion is limitless to get overwhelmed by anything. So you just give yourself time and do this practice. Just do it, with the best ability that you can. That's it. So you do with the best ability. Don't pressurize yourself too much. Any practice, one thing very important to keep in mind, any practice, don't attach yourself with too much expectations. Very important. Don't attach yourself with too much fear, expectations and fear. That is very important. If you attach yourself with such, then your practice is stained by these characters of your, the afflictive emotions. So don't stain your practice with that. Do the practice genuinely as it is, without such limitations or stains. And if you do that, then you will be able to overcome that, and you will be able to experience the genuineness of the practice. So you do that.
So next question is, why did this virus become so strong at this time for human beings on planet Earth? And what do humans need to do to make it go away and not return? And what can we do as individuals to help this?
I'm not omniscient, so I really don't know. I really don't know how why it came at this particular time. Of course, everything has cause condition, so of course it did not fall out from the empty sky, right? I'm sure we, did certain things, and it doesn't have to be, something that we did right now. Must have been collect, for the past many years, hundreds of years, that we human beings have done something that created the condition for such a virus to kind of come out. And also, really, I really don't know, but it is our common sense, all of us will know, if you use our common sense, that this is because of certain, conditions, that such things happen, so I guess we have to wait and see, then how to really overcome or get rid of this. But if we, so that way, of course, if we talk about the karma cause and effect, then of course, the karma, because of relatively, then karma is very much, present. So therefore, it has cause and conditions. So we must try and create the cause and conditions to avoid such difficult situations, and try to create conditions to experience better conditions. And of course, to the exact reason, I cannot pinpoint. I don't know. Only Buddha, will be able to really say. I cannot say for sure. But we definitely know that that the positive actions yield a positive result. Negative actions yield negative result. So this is a negative experience. So definitely it came about with a negative action. So how do we overturn that? Is by doing more positive, action, mentally, physically, orally, accumulating positive action, and through that, then creating a positive, condition, so that we can experience positive, conditions in the future. And so that is how we can do, because there's a collective, karma. So if everybody do that collectively, we can create a positive cause condition, so that collectively we can experience positive, experience. So that is what we can do.
Another one? Can you?
Till what time is it?
It's 10. We're 10 to 4 now.
Okay, so maybe for another. Okay, maybe for another 5 minutes.
Okay, so there's a question about mindfulness. Can you offer advice, Rinpoche, for maintaining mindfulness and awareness while doing everyday tasks?
So, of course, in a way, it is very easy, because as long as you're aware of whatever the situation, then you are, aware and mindful. But then it is so easy, that it is difficult. So when it's too easy, it is difficult. So it has to start from some point, right? There's no kind of magic solution to this. So the starting point is, we put some effort in doing our practice. For example, even for 1 minute or 2 minutes, sitting down and trying to do like the breathing shamatha meditation, or any kind of meditation that suits you, one can try and adopt in one's life, and try to do that. So meditation means being aware of the situation. then through that, then one gradually develops, and then one can extend that to one's any situation, being aware of any situation. But from the beginning, being aware of all situation is easy to say, but little difficult to do, because it's not so easy that way. So we have to start somewhere. So start by telling yourself that I will try and practice a little bit of meditation. Say like shamatha meditation, any one of the shamatha meditation methods, by sitting down, putting an effort, and being mindful, and being aware, and doing the meditation that way. And then after that, then once one is able to do that, then gradually one try to be mindful of every situation, whether it is then gradually whether one is having thoughts, or one is not having thoughts, or any situation, then if one is able to watch that, then one is able to be aware of that, then that is meditation. Then gradually you become in a state where no more meditation, everything is meditation. So we have to get there gradually, but then there's no magic pill that you can do that straight away. So you have to take the first step by putting the effort, little effort, and trying to do that for a moment, maybe a minute, maybe 5 minutes, depending. So you try that. Don't overpressure yourself with too much. As I told you, quality is important. Sitting there for 1 hour, but not really aware of the situation is not that kind of effort is not very productive. So even if you are able to sit there for a minute, but that minute, if you are able to have a good state of awareness, then that is very productive. So that way you can do a minute of practice every day, and then gradually that kind of a minute of practice you can do more, increase that kind of a minute practice more and more. Then gradually, then you can increase to 5 minutes, then gradually increase. So that way you can increase gradually. Then every moment one can try to be aware. So that way you can do.
So one more last question, Rinpoche. One more.
Okay.
This is the last one. What can we do in times of conflict and pain to react from a place of Dharma?
To react from a
place of Dharma? It says here, that's what it says in the question.
So I think all that is covered in my talk today. I think you already have the answer, right? So this question was before the talk or after the talk? Because I think I already spoke on all this. So I think, so seeing the conditions as not negative, able to transform the negative conditions to one's, progressive development. So that is how we are, that is how we transform in the, the spiritual path. So one can do that. So that is how one does.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Can I say thank you on behalf of everybody who got online and those who didn't get online. We will post it very soon, and apologies for that, but I'd like to, on behalf of everybody, of course, Lama Rabrong, Lama Lodro in Birmingham, everybody who tuned in, to thank you so much for taking time from your retreat. You're in retreat.
Where's Lama Lodro? I cannot see Lama Lodro. Where's Lama Lodro? Is he there?
You're not in retreat. Okay. Anyway.
No. I mean, where's Lama Lodro? I didn't see Lama Lodro. I was trying to figure out where he is. I saw Lama Rabsang. Okay, maybe I don't know how to see. Yeah, I see Lama Rabsang. Yeah, Lama Lodro. Okay. So anyways, my regards to all of you. Very nice to see all of you today. There are many more which I don't know how to see, but whoever I can see here, it's very nice to see all of you.
Okay, so so thank you, and will we make a dedication of merit?
Yes, yes, okay, okay. 소남디 탐지 즈바니 톰네 예베 다남 함제니 제가 나지 발랍 투바이 시베 솔레 로안 로로쇼 지나데와 소송어 텐데 남가 차바 도나 동아 나게 버코와 동안 지장소 방버쇼. Okay, yeah, so take care and yeah, okay, bye bye.